Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, I'm really hoping this is the last Dragon Age Veilguard video that I ever have to do, because holy cow, this game has been an absolute abomination. Bioware is already abandoning the game, and why wouldn't they after absolutely disastrous dumpster fire of sales, Steam numbers that really aren't anything to write home about, and it ended up being nothing more than a complete and total self-insertion from the game's creator. And you don't believe me, all you have to do is look what kind of delusional mental issues he's got, ladies and gentlemen. And so yes, here we are, hopefully putting the final death nail in an absolute beloved franchise, because Dragon Age Veilguard is absolutely that. The Dragon Age franchise is something that was beloved by millions of fans around the world for a very long time, and Dragon Age Veilguard is nothing more than the final nail in the coffin of Bioware's once beloved franchise, and it is coming to people that exactly deserve it, ladies and gentlemen. So we've got a little bit of information over here we need to garner from each one of these articles over here who believe that we can confirm this game basically DOA and that it will not be going anywhere going forward. And I think that's a very happy thing for all of us to hear about. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're going to check out these articles from That Park Place, getting all of the juicy details of why I do believe this game is completely and totally dead and Bioware has totally abandoned it, and why we hopefully will never have to make another video on this again. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Also, leave us a comment in the section down below. Were you a once great Dragon Age fan out there who has now been completely and totally turned off by this franchise because what Bioware has done with Veilguard? Or are you one of the few out there, the less than 70, 80,000 people out there still currently playing who actually enjoy the game and think it's worth it? Let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below. So from thatparkplace.com, John F. Trent over here on each one of these. So Dragon Age The Vielguard rumored to have sold less than Star Wars Outlaws, and considering the fact that we already have seen Ubisoft admit that that game came in less than expectations, and they decided to hold off on releasing Assassin's Creed Shadows because of how much of a disastrous dumpster fire Star Wars Outlaws turned out to be. Not only was it a completely and totally uglified character that deserved to be a Han Solo story to begin with, but on top of all of that as well, they also decided to make it nothing more a broken and buggy mess on release, and it completely and totally blew up in their face. And this was the Star Wars franchise, obviously with maybe a slightly bigger company behind it. I don't know, I guess there's arguments to be made which is bigger, Ubisoft or Bioware, but at the end of the day, even though it did flop less than that, and like I said, there's an argument you can be made that goes, well, you know what, Dragon Age isn't nearly as popular, Star Wars is not nearly as well-known brand, yada yada yada. Normies would pick it up that would normally be hardcore game players. That's true too, but Dragon Age has a very long pedigree, and to have it sell less than Star Wars Outlaws that has sold less than any other Star Wars game that we have seen in recent memory is not a good sign in any way, shape, or form. On top of that, we're getting reports from industry insiders like Eddie Mon over there, who's got all of his people that work inside of a lot of these big retail things. We heard the exact same kind of stuff, of course, from Stuttering Craig as well, who says 14% of Dragon Age The Veilguard physical retail orders reportedly canceled ahead of the game's release, and total pre-orders less than 200,000. Now, given this is just from one major retailer out there, ladies and gentlemen, but with less than 200,000, Hogwarts Legacy, a game from another studio that was not very well known in any way, shape, or form, from an unknown studio, sold over 22 million copies in 2023. And guess what? They were technically woke too, because you had a type A and a type B body type, not the typical male and female, much like what Dragon Age Veilguard is giving you, except, oh, they didn't even do that. They went male, female, or non-binary, which Brian remind me why I keep forgetting to make a video over why Dragon Age The Veilguard hates gay people. Because the only way you can romance both sexes in the game is to exclusively be non-binary. Why does Dragon Age The Veilguard hate gays? Boys and girls, I don't get it. I don't understand it. But less than 200 in sales, less than 200,000. And that's just from one retailer. But once again, there are other numbers that back up the fact that this game has failed miserably out there. We've got a peak concurrent player of 89,400 118. Now, given that's not a horrendous number, but when you compare it to recent releases, of course, like, oh, I don't know, Warhammer 40K, Space Marine 2, I would argue is another franchise that is known just about as well as Dragon Age Veilguard, right? Warhammer 40K out there had over 200,000 players at its peak concurrent right there, beating every other Warhammer game in history. And guess what it didn't have? A bunch of binary nonsense BS propaganda from a creator out there who is completely and totally delusional and believes that putting on dresses and coloring his hair will make him a lady. It's absolutely insane. So color us shocked there. This game has been nothing more than a broken and nothing more than a failure of a disaster with all of the Dragon Age fans out there. There's no reason this game, after all of these years, what was it, almost a decade or something more than before, since the last Dragon Age installment, literally you couldn't break 100K? That is pathetic. And you can go over here and look at it. It's not any better right now. 48,291 is all what you currently have playing right now. That is absolutely pathetic. And this is during the day on a Friday afternoon, when a lot of people are out there getting off work. There's streamers out there playing their Friday afternoon streams. And even then, these numbers are pathetic. So color us shocked there. We now have this report. Dragon Age The Vielguard will not have any DLC or expansions as Bioware shifts focus to Mass Effect 5. And why would you bother? Why, after spending hundreds of millions of dollars wasted on abysmal results like what Dragon Age The Veilguard gave you, why? Why would anyone bother continuing to go forward with this? And don't get me wrong, we know the creator behind Veilguard is absolutely 100% a true believer and will gladly spend hundreds of millions of dollars of other people's money to burn down the Dragon Age franchise while they deal with their own personal issues inside of this video game. Yes, boys and girls, because of course all of the non-binary characters are going to be the hero for all of the stories out there, because of course this freak knows that the world rejects him. And obviously they found out that very much on Tuesday with the election. Now, didn't they? Cry some more, boys and girls. And of course, we have plenty of our own fears about what the future of Mass Effect is going to be, especially based on any of the kind of board game stuff we've seen them allow as well. Yes, guess what, boys and girls? It's all non-binary woke content nonsense. Color us shocked there. So as the final nail in the coffin of the Dragon Age franchise, a new report details that Bioware will not be developing any DLC or expansions for Dragon Age The Veilguard, but instead turn their entire focus to Mass Effect 5. Yes, probably another game that Bioware will completely and totally destroy the franchise of as well. Aren't you Mass Effect fans excited? George Yang at Rolling Stone reported on Halloween, with Dragon Age The Veilguard now complete, Bioware confirms that there are currently no plans for downloadable expansions, which means even all the way back on Halloween, right when this game was launched, they already knew the numbers and the sales were so abysmally bad that they weren't going to dump any more money into this game. And why would they? It's already been a black hole. And apparently at least somebody at Bioware who maybe controls the purse strings is not as much of a true believer as the creator behind Dragon Age Veilguard. The developer's full attention is now shifted entirely to the next Mass Effect as their current project. Oh yes, and it's not done there. A subsequent report from Kat Bailey at IGN detailed, though, that Bioware is not completely abandoning Dragon Age Veilguard. Oh no, not completely. Following its release, but will support the game with quality of life improvements and a handful of smaller content updates. Yes, boys and girls, probably things like skins and some stuff like that they initially were going to try to sell you in some kind of big DLC package. Later on, they'll probably give it to you. And quality of life improvements, all that means is they're going to fix the bugs that are in this game that they tried to launch it as for quality of life improvements. I mean, literally, what are you going to have, like 1 or 2 people still left on the development team working on these things for Dragon Age Veilguard? Yeah, this game is dead. It is absolutely done right now. And of course, they tried to lie to their investors as much as what they possibly could, saying, oh, this game is going to be so well. It's going to be a decade since we saw the last one. This game's got really potential breakout success and yada, yada, yada. Yeah, well, after almost 2 weeks and 2 weekends of the game being out there and being this breakout success you were hoping for with a max player concurrent count of 89,000, and obviously that is not growing in any way, shape, or form, and didn't grow over its second weekend release and isn't going to grow over in its third weekend release, because just like out there in Hollywood, ladies and gentlemen, you know by the very first weekend the success of something out there, because if the people and the marketing couldn't get it excited for it to be a major splash hit, and then your obvious audience reviews out here as well are only at a 72%, and we know the kind of nonsense that goes on with some of that stuff sometimes, this game is a flop. It is dead in the water. Bioware has admitted it, and now they're abandoning the game. They are washing their hands of this little psychopath's experiment and expressing his own personal issues and trying to work them out while spending hundreds of millions of dollars of Bioware's money blowing up on what will be the end-up nail in the coffin for the Dragon Age franchise in its current state. Who knows? Maybe Bioware will get smart, fire everybody involved with this game, and decide to do something later down the road in a return to form. But after losing hundreds of millions of dollars and tainting the legacy of this franchise, would you? Why bother? Shelve it, let it have a cooling off period, and just maybe, here's a strange concept, here's a strange idea, don't hire somebody with an obvious mental disorder to spearhead a game you're going to dump hundreds of millions of dollars into. Because guess what, BioWare? It didn't work out for you. You've lost a whole bunch of money, and now you understand what of an absolute abysmal failure this game has been, why you're completely and totally abandoning it. And it's because we all know the truth, and it'll only be a matter of time before your next quarterly earnings report where we find out the truth behind how much of a disastrous dumpster fire this game was. But it's not rocket surgery to figure out this game is a flop. Hundreds of millions of dollars dumped into a legacy franchise that is now blown up in their faces. And guess what, Dragon Age Veilguard and your wonderful creator with the mental disorders? You did it to yourself, and you've gotten exactly what you deserved. Rest in peace, Dragon Age.